Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hoops HQ show. Seth Davis along with Andy Katz back with you again. It would be great if we could start the show talking about basketball, events on the court, all the storylines. We do have Nebraska head coach Fred Hoiberg coming up a little bit later on the show. They are off to an undefeated 19-0 start, but we are going to be talking once again about something that happened off the court, inside of a court, and that is a courtroom in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. County Judge James Roberts issued a temporary restraining order against the NCAA in favor of Charles Bediako, who is a former center at Alabama, left Alabama to put his name in the NBA draft, went undrafted, signed 3 different NBA contracts, including a 2-way contract with the San Antonio Spurs, played in the G League with 3 different teams, has never played in an NBA game, but triggers a couple of clauses in the NCAA rulebook that leaves him ineligible for competition. They ruled him ineligible. His lawyers took the NCAA to court, which is what lawyers do. And this judge instituted a temporary restraining order that is good for 10 days. So he will have a preliminary injunction hearing on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Bediako is on campus in Tuscaloosa, hasn't yet practiced with the team. He is eligible to play in their game on Saturday against Tennessee. Early indications and reports are that Nate Oates intends to play him. We'll see if that actually happens. Andy Katz, a lot to chew on here. Take it away. What's your main takeaway from this big-time story?
Well, I mean, look, I totally disagree with this decision. It is very much akin, different kind of case, but the overall macro way of trying to use a local court to get your way. And it happened in Ohio, where Ohio State got Puff Johnson due to a medical situation, denied by the NCAA to get cleared to play for them, despite the fact he played 3 seasons at Carolina, 2 seasons at Penn State. So now you're on year 6 in the back half of this season. And he gets this federal no, NCAA no. Oh, let's go to the local judge who might be an Ohio State fan. We don't know, but it's a local judge. Now you go down in this case in Alabama, same thing. You're not going to get a friendly judge federally. You're not going to win it NCAA. So let's just see if we can get someone in the state of Alabama locally to get something like this done. I don't understand it from an Alabama perspective, meaning the basketball team. If you're Nate Oates, you're being kind of hypocritical here because he's been quoted saying that these take opportunities away from high school players. He was a former high school coach. It's in his bones. You're messing with your rotation. You've got a rotation. You've got a team that when they're on and healthy, they could compete for the national championship. And now you want to bring in a guy sort of halfway through the SEC and throw him in there. Oh, and by the way, he may only be eligible for a game or 2. We don't know if it's going to stick. So I just don't understand the mentality of bringing in someone like this when you don't know if he's going to play for you throughout even the course of the season. I don't like it at all, and I don't agree at all of the comparison with James Nanji, Seth, who got cleared at Baylor. Whether it's right or wrong, he did not sign an NBA contract. He did not play in college basketball. Yes, he's within the 5 years of his high school, but there is a difference with his case and Bediako.
So it's a very dicey situation because people are complaining about, well, what's the rules? Make the rules clear. But it raises the even more basic question, which is, can the NCAA even legally enforce its rules? Because to your point, all it takes is one judge in one court to put on a TRO or an injunction, and they don't even have to decide the merits of the rule and the legality of the world. They can just kick the can down the road and say, well, while this is being adjudicated, this athlete's allowed to play. This is not like the NBA where you can just bring in a player on February 20th who, fits a certain criteria and you can add him to the team. These are still institutions of higher education, and somebody has to be enrolled in school. My understanding is at the beginning of the semester, which Charles Bediako has already done. So if there are going to be more of these types of players coming in, it's going to be very disruptive. It will happen in the fall. So it's a very dicey situation about whether they can even enforce their own rules.
We're both fathers, and to me, young adults, you have to make a decision, and when you make that decision, there are consequences for that decision. His decision in this particular case was to leave college basketball after a couple of seasons, enter his name in the NBA draft, and then become a professional. He made a decision. Great. Stick with it. You can't just unwind everything and try to go back in time. You decided to leave school. You have every right to do that. You participated in college basketball and at Alabama for a couple of years, and then you left. So if you left, you made that decision. You should live with it.
Well, I'm actually going to disagree with you on that, Andy, to the point where I never begrudge somebody from exercising their legal rights. He wants to play. He wants to be able to make money. And even when Nate Oates made that comment about, well, I don't like punishing the high school kids, but if you have the opportunity to make your team better, you're going to do that. So I don't necessarily begrudge people from chasing the opportunities that they want to chase and testing. This is what the legal system is for. It underscores. There's people love to blame the NCAA is this, the NCAA is that. It's not about the NCAA right now, except its relation and efforts with Congress. And as depressing as it sounds, the only way out of the wilderness, people talk about making them employees and a union and a CBA. That stuff is just not realistic. It's just not going to happen. The hurdles are so high. The logistics are impossible. The incentives, I keep saying, there's no incentive for the players to form a union and have a collective bargaining agreement, which allows the schools to enforce a salary cap. The NCAA needs to redouble its focus, get with Congress, as difficult as that is, and get some type of baseline that this is what the NCAA is allowed to do. We got about 30 seconds. Andy Katz, you get the last word on this.
Look, we can agree to disagree. I think if you go into the draft undrafted, you should be able to come back to school. But we're talking years since he played. He made a decision. I say grow up, move on with your life.
When people have a choice between growing up and making money, usually the money is going to win. But your point is well taken. There's going to be a lot to follow on this front. This whole area is so vital to the future of college athletics. As I keep saying, Andy, I know you'll agree with me on this. Thank goodness the games are so amazing. If you watch that college football championship game between Indiana and Miami and all the great stories around college sports is healthy and vibrant and a resounding success. The off-the-court stuff is a mess, and it's going to take years for it to iron out. In terms of the greatness of the product, one of the great stories in college basketball this season, the Nebraska Cornhuskers are one of the last unbeaten teams at 19-0, and their head coach, Fred Hoiberg, is going to join us on the Hoops HQ show right after this. And welcome back to the Hoops HQ show. Seth Davis and Andy Katz joined by America's coach, Fred Hoiberg, coaching America's team in a world where Indiana has reigned supreme over football. It only makes sense that the Nebraska Cornhuskers are now 19-0. We're having this conversation Wednesday night. They just finished off Washington to remain undefeated. Fred, congratulations on the success of the team and the season. And I know we have an injury to Frager to talk about a little bit, but I want to ask you first off, in the macro, it's one thing to be undefeated this late, but now you guys have such a target on your backs. You're winning on the road. Every team that you play wants to hand you your first loss. How have you been able to maintain this streak in the face of that extremely unfamiliar experience for this program?
Well, first of all, Seth, thanks for having me on. Excuse me. Thanks for that great introduction. I appreciate that. Andy, good to see you. And yes, listen. This team is prepared really well. That's been the most impressive thing to me about this group. And the week that I think really this team believed that we had a chance to do something special this year is when we played our rival. We played Creighton. Had a really good game, ended up with a 20-point win, had 2 days to prepare for a conference opener, the first home opener we've had in 7 years, by the way. And we did an unbelievable job. Maybe played our best, most complete game of the season against Wisconsin in a short prep. And then we had another short prep, 2 days to prepare for our first road game in lead to go on the road at Illinois. And, obviously it was a great finish for us. Jamarcus hitting a huge shot. But to me, the start we got off was the reason that we won that game, building a double-digit lead early in that game. And, I think that speaks to the maturity, how they've been able to get past big emotional wins like that when you beat a big rival like we have with Creighton, and to be able to bounce back and prepare the way we did. And the other one was Michigan State. We beat Michigan State, and I kind of compare playing Michigan State to when I was in the Big 12 and you play Kansas. Whether you win or lose, you have a hangover the next game because of the physicality of the game. And same thing with Michigan State. You find a way to win a rock fight, and then we get 2 days to prepare to go on the road at Ohio State. And again, got off to a great start. So, our guys have done a great job. And I tell them, enjoy the process. Really be proud of yourselves for everything we got going. But as soon as we get comfortable and complacent, this thing's over.
All right, so we'll get to the game. A couple of things that occurred to that, certainly with the Braden Frager injury, but I'm basically less than a half a mile from Pinnacle Bank Arena. As you can see, I've got the corn draperies over my shoulders, so I have to still be in Lincoln, Nebraska. And Fred, I've been in that building before, but being in that building on Wednesday night for this win over Washington, packed house, to me, you could really make an argument of Mackey and Pinnacle Bank, two great environments in the Big Ten. Over the course of your tenure thus far here at Nebraska, as passionate as this fan base has been, how hard was it to lock in, to get this fan base to be fully on board, to create that kind of home environment?
Well, they've been fully on board, Andy. I look at a couple of years ago. We went undefeated in league play. We went 10-0 at home in the Big Ten, and we were sold out every game. Last year we did not do a good enough job in protecting home court, but our fans still showed up. And you look at you saw the atmosphere and the environment and how loud it was when we went on that run in the second half. You couldn't hear in there. And that's the great thing about this league. The venues are unbelievable. Everywhere you play, you're playing in a packed house. But you see everything. I mean, we're sold out. Every ticket is sold for the rest of the year. But I think what you don't see, and you may not know, is we were sold out for our last two non-con games against North Dakota and New Hampshire, where we didn't have an empty seat in PBA. So it's just been unbelievable, and they've played a huge role in our early success so far this season.
So let me follow
Fred,
up real quick, Seth, with the Braden Frager situation. 4 minutes in, turns that ankle. You're up at Minnesota and then Michigan in this road swing. He comes out with a boot on. Since I last saw you, since we're taping this, what's the update on Frager?
Yeah, we'll know a lot more tomorrow. That's a lot of times how it goes. He's got an ankle sprain, and the good thing is it's not a high one, so it's a low ankle sprain. It did swell up on him, but we're going to know a lot more in the morning. We'll get a precautionary X-ray. Our trainer's confident that it won't show anything, but we'll know a lot more after to see how he responds after a night of sleep.
Fred, you've always been known as a really great offensive coach. You're a great offensive player. And that includes your time with the Chicago Bulls. Right now on KenPom, Nebraska is 12th in the country in defensive efficiency. This is by far the best defensive team you've coached in college. It might be a better defensive team than some of your Bulls teams. How much of that is your evolution as a coach or some intentionality about being better at that end of the floor? How much of that is just the team that you're coaching and the personnel that you have?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Seth. Listen, my assistant coach, Nate Lenzer, deserves a lot of credit for what we've done on the defensive end of the floor. And I've really kind of modeled my staff more. I've got a son, Jack, who played for Coach Izzo at Michigan State, that's with the San Antonio Spurs. And they kind of changed the way they did things this year, bringing in some new guys. They kind of split the room. So I'm almost got it more like a football staff where I've got a defensive room and an offensive room. And Nate does an unbelievable job of putting a game plan together. And I'll put an offensive plan together with Ernie Ziegler and with Pat Monahan. And then Nate and I will get together and, we'll put the final touches on the game plan and what it's going to be. But he's done a phenomenal job, and his passion and energy. You see him over there in the sidelines calling out what plays are being run, and it takes a lot off my plate as well, and that's his passion. And again, I give Coach Lenzer a lot of credit for what we're doing on the defensive side of the ball right now.
Fred, we're all three dads here. You've got an incredible family. I've actually worked with your daughter Paige at the Big Ten Network. Just wonderful young people, and I'm just curious, as a dad and as a coach, the development of your son, Sam. I mean, Danny Sprinkle said to us earlier on Wednesday that he's not just a glue guy. Seth, you're glueless. He thinks that Sam should be first team All Big Ten. That's how important he is. And I think that opinion whether or not he gets there, but that opinion is shared, how important he has been to your team. As a dad and as a coach, how did this happen?
Well, it's his mom. His mom gets all the credit for. He's just such a scrappy player, and it's been good to see him get going and get some confidence on the offensive end. He always made hustle plays for us. He's always the guy that's going to come out of a scrum with the ball. He's leading our team in defensive rebounding at currently at 5'11". So he just has always been one of those guys, and it's been great to see his confidence grow on offense, and also see the recognition. You see some of the things, Greg McDermott said some really nice things. Coach Izzo, talked about always one of his favorite players in the league. Greg Gard said some good things. Danny, it's just it's been good to see, Sam get it, because he does a lot of things that don't show up in the box score, and he's been doing that for 3 years, really since he was put into the rotation when we lost Jawan Gary and Emmanuel Bandamel to season-ending injuries a couple years ago. So I'm really proud of him, and it's going to be very emotional on senior night for our whole family. It's nice to have his twin brother Charlie in our program now, and honestly, he gets a lot of the credit for Sam, because I'll get pissed off at Sam, and then Charlie will be able to find a way. They got the same DNA, so we can get in his head a lot better than I can, and he's been a big reason that Sam's playing with more confidence this year.
Well, the three of us are dads. We're also husbands, so we're not stupid. We're married this long. We give all credit to the wives. So well played, Fred. Last question. I had this running joke with Jay Wright. We worked together for a couple of years at CBS, and I got an insight into his mind as a coach. And what I learned, the running joke is, no matter what the situation is, it's a problem. That's how coaches think. So you're undefeated. You're having a dream season. What is this team's biggest problem right now, and how are you going to try to solve it?
Oh, I still think we can be more physical, Seth. That to me, and you saw some of that in the game tonight against Washington. And we just have to continue to battle. And we're not the most athletic team. We're not the fastest team. I do think we're very well connected, and that's one of the reasons I think we've had success on both ends of the court. Is those guys have been very disciplined on the defensive end. They follow a game plan, and offensively they share the ball. We've got one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the country, and they make the right play, and they play with incredible unselfishness. So, to me, the physicality is where we need to continue to grow. The Oregon game is probably the best. That's a top 25 offensive rebounding team. We didn't give them one in the first half, and did a great job out rebounding them. Tonight, we got beat up a little bit. So we'll have a good film session tomorrow. We'll learn. It's always better to learn from a win, and we need to continue to get better. Like I said, as soon as you get comfortable and complacent, we're going to be in trouble.
Well, that target on your back is only going to get bigger. It's not only fun watching you guys win, it is fun watching you guys play. You're so connected. The individual parts are great, but the whole is greater than the sum. And it's a great story for college basketball. And by the way, you are also the first official guest on the Hoops HQ show. So I know that'll go at the top of your resume when you submit it to the Basketball Hall of Fame. We thank you for your time, and we wish you best of luck of the season. Thanks for being with us.
I am honored, fellas. Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome back to the Hoops HQ show with Seth Davis and Andy Katz. Injuries are always a part of college basketball. We talked with Fred Hoiberg about Braden Frager. A couple other significant injuries. Andy, pick one that you want to weigh in on. Kylan Boswell, a guard from Illinois, broke his hand. They think he's going to be out maybe a month. Braden Huff at Gonzaga injured his knee. They're hoping to get him back. Maybe at March he could be gone for the season. Cam Williams at Kentucky broke his foot. Jaden Quayton's nursing a bad knee there, and Darren Peterson has now rolled his ankle. Which one of those jumps out at you?
Well, to me, it's Braden Huff. The 1-2 punch up front with Huff and Graham Ike might have been, with Michigan, the best front court in the country. Ike actually has been banged up too as well. So you take Huff off of that, puts a lot of pressure on Graham Ike. They're in the WCC, which isn't as strong as it's been, but St. Mary's and Santa Clara are certainly capable of beating Gonzaga. So what does that mean? If they don't run the table, it means their seeding could take a hit. They could drop, no chance to be a 1. Could they drop to a 3? Possibly. And all that means is if Huff comes back, it just makes it harder for them to go the distance, to get to Indianapolis. So I think his injury is the most significant of the ones we've seen thus far, of a player that could come back.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and you make a good point about Graham Ike. He's banged up as well. For Illinois to lose Kylan Boswell, remember Andrei Stojakovic missed 7 weeks of the summertime before he came back. He came back right before their first game. They had a couple other guys banged up. The international guys had visa issues. So I really felt like that Christmas break where they finally had some time just to practice, they got a lot better. They got a lot of talent on that team. Keaton Wagler is one of the great stories, that freshman in college basketball. But don't get it twisted. Kylan Boswell is the head of the snake. And they're going into Mackey Arena on Saturday to play a Purdue team that just lost in heartbreaking fashion at UCLA. So it's really unfortunate because I do think that Illinois has a super high ceiling. And, to have your point guard out for a month and then he comes back, you got to reintegrate him. It's going to be a big-time challenge for Illinois. So injuries are part of the game, and great teams can handle them. That's why you have depth. And it's time for the next man up. We're going to be picking the weekend's games right after this on the Hoops HQ show. All right, final segment of the Hoops HQ show. We got some picks against the spread, Andy Katz. Houston at Texas Tech in Lubbock on Saturday. The Red Raiders are favored by a point. Who you like?
I like the Red Raiders. Unbelievable game. They just played like 2 weeks ago. Kind of wish the leagues would spread out these rivalry games. But I like the Red Raiders. Revenge, split the season series. And I think Texas Tech is going to be right there in that mix for the Big 12 title.
I agree. LaJuan Watts has really been that third leg of the stool. I'll take the Red Raiders at home. Illinois at Purdue. Boilermakers favored by 3. Who do you like?
I like the Boilermakers. Really frustrating loss for them at UCLA. CJ Cox had a chance to win the game at the end. Didn't drop for him. Kylan Boswell's out for Illinois, which is a huge advantage for the best point guard in the country, Braden Smith.
I should point out, by the way, these lines are from Ken Palm. So by the time that game tips off, I wouldn't be surprised if Purdue was favored by more than 3 points, but I'll take the Boilermakers at home as well. Tennessee at Alabama, the Charles Bediako debut potentially. Crimson Tide favored by 4 at home. Who do you like?
Well, I liked Alabama with or without Bediako. I do think Tennessee's been very inconsistent, and I just think Alabama's better. They have more scorers. They don't really go into those kind of droughts. And so I like the Tide, regardless of this edition.
I do too. It's nothing to do with Bediako. I think Tennessee's really been struggling. They're going the wrong direction. And finally, Rick Pitino going for career win number 900, favored by 8 points at Xavier, coached by Richard Pitino. Johnny's favored by 8. Real quick, who do you like?
So I'm not going to do spread here. I am covering the game for TNT, but I will say I'm going to root for the story. I think it'll be a great, Richard won't be mad for me saying this, but it would be a great story if I'm there to interview Rick Pitino with win number 900.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the Musketeers are going to cover the spread, the 8-point spread at home. St. John's is playing better. I think Xavier's been playing better too. Lost a heartbreaker at Creighton against Creighton on Wednesday. I think they'll be ready to play. I think it'd be a great story if the son denies the dad the 900th win. Anyway, thanks for joining us on the Hoops HQ show. We want you to go over to hoopshq.com. We've got tons of unbelievable content, men's and women's, covering all aspects of college basketball. And to celebrate the launch of the show, we got a huge discount, 66% off an annual subscription for $20.26 a year. You get a full year of hoopshq.com. Go to hoopshq.com/subscribe. Again, hoopshq.com/subscribe. I promise you it's going to be the best $20 you'll ever spend. The best time of the year is coming. Andy Katz, great to talk to you as always. We'll see you everybody next time on the Hoops HQ show.